Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the fact that 2021 is a meme. Some crazy news even just came out today that is so ridiculous. I guess this stream should half be called 2021 is a meme and should half be called 2021 is a raging dystopia nightmare. A little bit of both, I think. But before we get into all of that, let me reload over here so I can watch the chat. And all right. So who do we have in the house? We have David Neal is here, Sydney Wapples, Vince DeBona, Iron Daisies, Stealthy Master, John Morgan, ta-da. Hopefully you guys can't hear all the noise that my dog just randomly decided to make. Euban T. Roland, Keith Halstein, Cap and Mac, Douglas from PA, Greg Harding, Robert Graham, Velcro 1167, check 'em. Just check them. Iron Daisies, Frank Desty. We have Tada. We have Gerald and Stacy Adams, Fish and Golf and Guns, Squid Monkey, Lone Wolf. I don't see Robin in the chat yet, but people were talking to her. Michael Clark is in. Let's see. We have P. Taylor, Bob Messer-Cola, Jesse Meek. There's Robin, Greg Harding, Aaron Miller, Gone Fish and Eric, Mr. Rover Pilot, Donovan Clark is in. Let's see who we have. Some Facebook people, maybe. Let's see. Well, I see Chester Thomas is here. Not on Facebook, but Mark Miswain is in. Man, slow on the YouTube, it looks like. But we got a lot of people here. Either way. Frank, just Frank. Let's see. All right. So I have a couple of super chats already, but I also saw some people in the beginning in the chat saying that their super chats were getting declined by YouTube. So that's interesting. Let me see the ones that I can see here. So we have Mr. Rover Pilot says, "Hello, Dolly. I am probably one of the few that can deliver that greeting. Haven't actually seen the musical on its first run in the theater." I honestly haven't even seen the movie, but I know the reference. And Robert Chappelle says, "Hola," or hola, wow, hola from Las Vegas. And it looks like YouTube is actually notifying some people on time, so that's good to know. And Jordan S. says, "I finally got my first gun. Praise the sun." Wow, my goodness. That is a little bit of a miracle, isn't it? And okay, now I see that Facebook is catching up. So we have Mike Malone, we have Dean Willich, we have Stewart, Olseth, aka Tennessee Beowulf, double dipping. All right, guys. Well, so some of what I had on the docket to talk about today is going to be a review for some of you. David McCoy says to hit the like button. But I just, oh man, all of it put together, it is turning out to be such a really crazy year. Jesse Meek says that 2021, the shit topped dumpster fire part 2. West Coast Chicano says, "Hello, everyone. Sorry for missing the last stream." There we go. So, okay, where do we even start? Okay, well, so we started out the year, right? Oh, Trashman just came in. So let's do Trashman's intro, and then we'll get into it. And someone in the chat just said that there was an assassination attempt on Trump. Really? Okay, I was not keeping up with the news today. So Trashman says, live from the Yellow Jessamine State, it's the ladies whose podcast is more popular than Pence's, who isn't enjoying a second nor'easter of Frozen Doom this season. For you, family. And with that, here's Dolly. I feel like being more popular than Mike Pence as far as a podcast goes is a pretty low bar, actually. And Robin says, did you know that the National Guard presence at the Capitol looks like it's costing $500 million? No, I did not. Brian Levin says we need Article 5, Convention of the States, to set things right again. I unfortunately think that that's very unlikely. Stephen Hatton says, it's my first time chatting with you live, but I've been a fan for a while. Well, hello and welcome. Hopefully it does not disappoint. All right, so let's dive right in. So, all right. Start of the year came. Well, of course, we had our New Year's, right, where there were all these TikTok videos and photos came out that showed people watching the New Year's celebrations on their TV. Damn, I don't know what my dog is doing. Anyways, so yes, and there was like the videos on like TikTok and stuff where they were watching the amazing fireworks and lights and laser displays on TV and then pointing their phone to the window, and it was not actually happening in real life, and it was all like completely computer generated and fake. We had those things going on. We had a few days after that, okay, January 6th, we had the Capitol riots, right, with the guy actually in the buffalo headdress storming the Capitol. He got arrested. And then he started talking about how he was a shaman and needed organic food in order to live. And so he was refusing to eat. And originally I was like, wow, that's really cool. Because like I thought he was doing a hunger strike or something. No, he was just talking about organic food and that he needed organic food. Well, a judge has officially ruled that the prison system needs to give this guy organic food, number one. And then we have this ridiculous. I can't even believe this. Check this out. So I saw this on Twitter yesterday. So this right here is a screenshot of the official FBI report, criminal complaint. And, you know, okay, it has some pictures of the events, and it has this picture here of the Capitol riot. This is the official criminal complaint. Now, let's see if we can zoom in on this picture here. Oh, we cannot. All right, we're going to have to do it a different way. I hate that. Oh, where did it go? Darn it. Oh, stupid Twitter. Here we go. Okay, we'll try that again. I'll have to just save this, I guess, so that we can zoom in on it. All right, we'll try this again. So we have this picture of the official criminal complaint. And tell me, guys, what you see here. Just take a minute to like take this in. So, you know, we have Horn Man. We have a couple of the guys here that got arrested. And, you know, we see this beautiful background of the Capitol building. And exactly, we have this picture that does not actually exist in the Senate. This is actually the famous meme of a wood sitting on bed is the name of the meme. This is in the official criminal complaint, you guys, for the FBI. This is the photo that they used to identify this guy. The official FBI criminal complaint. That is one of the reasons why I say that 2021 rather, is a meme. Because that is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So we have that going on, right? And then we have, if you missed it, the AOC drama where she was talking all about her time in the Capitol riots and how terrified she was. And every time she told this story, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. First, there was that tweet about someone stealing her shoes. I don't even think that I can't find anywhere. I don't think that was a real tweet, but it's being passed off as a real tweet. Either way. And yes, people are saying like, oh yeah, the doctored photo, and that should be able to throw out the criminal complaint. Apparently they're saying that the guy confessed. And so the fact that they used this doctored photo in their document is irrelevant. But I mean, I saw that and I just like died. I died. So then we have, AOC and her story about what happened in the Capitol. And what's interesting is like the timeline there is getting kind of funky because, you know, first it was just, oh, she was scared. And then it evolved from there to half of the House nearly died. And then it evolved some more to half of the House was nearly assassinated. And then she flat out accused Ted Cruz of attempted murder. We covered that in a Liberty Minute, and I think we covered that maybe last week in the stream. So now the newest information is that bitch wasn't even there. She wasn't even in the Capitol building at all. There were no rioters that breached her building, despite her claims that there were rioters like in the hallways breaching the building. Her timeline begins by her own words at 1:01 p.m. before the Capitol building was even breached. Okay. And then we have this all broke because a map came out. I mean, I don't know why it took this long for a map of the Capitol to come out, but that's what happened. So we can check out this map here. So here's a map of the Capitol. All right. So let's see. I believe, yes. So here's the U.S. Capitol building. This is the direction that the rioters came from. And for the most part, most of the breaches were through here. Now we have this big ass lawn, and we have this busy street that I believe was blocked off. And then over here is the Cannon building. This is where AOC's office is, and her office is way on this side of the building. And that is where she was. And then she talked about, there was that whole story of the Capitol police officer that came barging in and looking all angry and all the anger and hostility in his eyes. And I didn't know if he was there to help me or hurt me, and talking about hiding in her bathroom and then hiding in her closet and all of that. And then she said she did this 1.5-hour live stream. I've seen snippets and clips of it. I haven't watched the whole thing because I watched her for 1.5 hours for the town hall where she talked about the need for government funding for re-education programs for conspiracy theorists. And quite frankly, that was enough. So I only watched some of the clips and snippets of this live stream. But she then talked about how this Capitol police officer showed up and, you know, didn't announce himself and was just like, where is she? Where is she? So, you know, she thought that this was a rioter. So then she said that he told her to evacuate and then like left her, and that she had to evacuate just her and her aide by themselves. And they're running across the grass to this building where Katie Porter's office is. And she said that she saw no one and could hear behind her the doors being ripped off the hinges as the rioters came through. Bitch, they weren't in your building. I mean, maybe I don't know. Did she hear doors coming off the hinges from all the way over here? I don't know the actual distance of this. Someone told me that it was 1/2 mile. I don't really know. But so she supposedly heard the door hinges in this building from all the way over here, and it somehow was proof to her of rioters in her building approximately an hour before the Capitol was actually breached, mind you. She says that she got into this building and there was no one else. There was no one in the hallways, and it was deathly quiet because everyone was locked down and hiding. So there was an evacuation of the Cannon House building because of a possible bomb threat. And they marched everyone over to this building. And there are media tweets from the day of videos of people just hanging out in this lobby, chatting, looking completely unconcerned, just hanging out like nothing is going on. But, she says that she didn't see anyone else and that all the hallways were empty and she was completely alone and terrified. That is not what happened at all. Furthermore, so her story of the rioters breaching her building happened at 1:01 p.m. Congress was in session until 2:30 over here. From my understanding, this building wasn't even breached, the rotunda and all that, until like 2 p.m. 2:30. But anyway, so at 1:01 p.m., she says that, rioters busted in, da-da-da. This controlled and calm evacuation to the next building happened at approximately 1:30. At 1:53, police gave these people the all clear to go back to this building that she says was overtaken by rioters. So Jack Posobiec was the one that posted a map. It wasn't this map, but he had a map, and it had an arrow here that said Capitol Building, and an arrow here that said Katie Porter's office, and an arrow here that said AOC's office, which you can find on Google, by the way. Like, it's listed if you do a Google map of the Capitol. It shows where her office is. But, when she was talking about conspiracy of people triangulating her location because other people told rioters, bitch, it says on Google where your office is. And I know people are going to be mad that I'm swearing, but this is just so ridiculous. So Jack Posobiec puts up the map, right? And then I'll bring up the tweets here because, this is just absolutely... I keep them in a Photoshop doc. So let me scroll over here. So her response... Her response was, "This is the latest manipulative take on the right. They are manipulating the fact that most people don't know the layout of the Capitol complex." So basically, what she's saying is it's manipulation because she is hoping that people don't understand maps, is what that is. And then it goes a step further, and she talks about the tunnels. Oh, his arrows were incorrect, she says. And that he didn't demarcate on it the tunnels. Because he says maps cut through the rhetoric, and she says this isn't a fact check at all. Your arrows aren't accurate. His arrows were exactly accurate. They pointed to the Capitol building and the Cannon building and Katie Porter's office, because later on she said that she hid in Katie Porter's office. She says they lie about where the mob stormed and placed them further away than it was. His map that he used didn't say anything about where people stormed and where they didn't. And she said, you also failed to show tunnels. Poor job all around. So she's saying it's not a fact check because people can't read maps, or she's banking on people not being able to read maps. And she's saying because his map didn't show the tunnels. Meanwhile, check this out. The comments to the share ratio here. Let me see. I think one of these actually has his actual map in it. She also claimed that Trump supporters planted bombs around her building, and they did not. Oh, here's the actual map that he posted. So this is his map. It just points to the U.S. Capitol, and actually, I mean, the rioters came in from this direction. They didn't even come in from over here. So I guess, yeah, if she thinks that these are supposed to point to where the rioters came in, but I mean, that's not what it's labeled. It's labeled U.S. Capitol Building, which is accurate, and Katie Porter's office, which is accurate, and AOC's office. I mean, I guess technically AOC's office is actually like over here. So I guess that is a little incorrect, but I mean, that just places her even further away. And then this woman had the audacity to send out an email to all of her followers, because you see what happened after all of this came out is hashtag AOC lied was #1 trending on Twitter in the US. So was Alexandria Ocasio-Smollett. In reference to Jussie Smollett, who faked the hate crime in 2019. So let me pull up. Oh, also, she they organized a special meeting for the House members to share their horrible, traumatic, and I shouldn't laugh at trauma, but I mean, this chick is talking about how much danger she was in and how it caused all this trauma and re-triggered her trauma of a sexual assault or something. I don't know. She's just really digging deep to make it all about her. And so they organized this special event where the House members can go talk about their trauma on the House floor. And she's kicking off this special hour. Of course she is. Of course she is. But then she sent out this email. I have to scroll here to find it, where basically she sent it out to her followers on her little like mailing email list and talked about how it was the right spreading fake news and propaganda, and we need to fight it by saying, by reporting any tweets about her and reporting tweets that had that hashtag. And it looks like actually she might have deleted. Well, I reposted it. So let's see. Oh, is that gone? Oh, we got it. Here we go. So this was the newsletter that she sent out to folks. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. Yep. Oh, it's not going to let me. That's lame. But anyway, so you guys can't see this so well, but she says, as we speak, right-wing operatives with millions of followers on social media are spreading flat-out lies and misleading information about Alexandria. But with your help, we can force Twitter and Facebook to take action and enforce their own rules. And this part is nuts. She talks about how frustrating it is. And what's so frustrating about these attacks is that once the truth comes out, so few people get to hear it. And yet, this paragraph right here that is highlighted asks her followers to scan your social media to find posts with this misleading information, especially those using the trending hashtag. Don't tweet the hashtags, but instead identify those posts and report them to Facebook. Facebook and Twitter both have built-in tools for reporting these posts and tweets that break the rules. So she talks about how sad it is that people aren't going to get to see the truth, while also simultaneously telling people to report posts that talk about the truth. Yes. So also in 2021 is a meme. Of course, I mentioned before, Trump formed his office of the former president in Florida, and the seal that he's using for this office is the same seal of the president of the United States, except in black and white. I still can't get over that. And now David Hogg is starting a pillow company. David Hogg is starting a pillow company. It's like an epic rap battle or something to battle Mike Lindell, the CEO of My Pillow. And he announced this move on Twitter. I'm sorry. NBC News. David Hogg launching pillow company to put My Pillow out of business because he just has not finished yet with his 15 minutes of fame that now he needs a pillow company to get more attention. He tweeted out a list of goals for the future company, which included supporting progressive causes and hiring formerly incarcerated Americans. Okay. Parkland survivor and gun control advocate David Hogg plans to launch his own pillow company with the goal of competing against embattled betting company My Pillow. Does this link to the actual tweet? No, it does not. The idea was posed to Hogg in a tweet from entrepreneur William Legate on Thursday that questioned whether the duo should start a pillow company to put My Pillow out of business because David Hogg knows all about business and betting, apparently, because they don't like Mike Lindell and his support of Trump. So he tweeted out yesterday, yes, William Legate and I are really starting a pillow company. Key parts of the company: union made in America to create good jobs that support American families, have an emphasis on supporting progressive causes, not attempt a white supremacist overthrow of the United States government. Yeah, because My Pillow tried to put a coup on the government. Okay, so you can sleep at night. And then I guess it was a relieved face. So interestingly enough, this guy, there was something wacky that he posted the other day. I don't remember what it was. And I tried to look at it and I have no idea who this dude is, but I am blocked. Never heard of this guy in my entire life, but I'm blocked. So I can't see whatever crazy crap he posted the other day. Anyways. Though it might have initially seemed like a joke, Hogg later said that he was serious about this business venture, and then he tweeted his list of goals. The website will be up in a couple of weeks. We are very much in the early stages right now, but we really are doing this. If you have cool name ideas, DM me. We think we have one, but we are still open. I would pay money to see this kid's DMs after he said that. And then it talks about like how cool David Hogg is, I guess. And okay, so here's one of the tweets that I couldn't see. We may have our pillow manufacturing partner sorted out. Hopefully we'll know one way or the other by the end of the night, like we promised. Will be American made by union workers. So I wonder if they're going to have an issue like Bernie had when he promised to unionize his campaign and then they demanded more money and he couldn't pay them the more money, so he cut their hours. That would be hilarious if that's what happened with David Hogg. And of course, I mean, nothing is more of a meme in 2021 than the fact that Elon Musk is talking about how he has become meme destroyer of shorts by investing tons and tons of money into Dogecoin, which actually made it go up like, I don't even know how many percentage points, but it more than doubled in price. We have everything still going on with WallStreetBets. I actually pumped a few more dollars into GameStop myself this morning, and then it shot up $20 after I did that, and then shot up another 10, which is fabulous. I mean, and you go on the Wall Street Bets subreddit, and it's just like people posting tons of emojis and like Harambe gorillas and calling each other retards, and it's kind of amazing. It's really making me love internet culture all over again. They hired a plane to fly a banner over Robinhood headquarters that said, "Suck my nuts." They've been buying billboards all over the place. There was even one in Times Square for an hour this past week that's, featured GameStop to the moon. There's AMC billboards. There's just plain WallStreetBets billboards. 2021 is a meme. We are only into February, and all of this has happened. And then we'll get into all the really dystopian, crazy crap next. But I'll read the super chats first. Because, some of the other stuff that's going on, I can't even. I white girl literally can't even. So Trashman says about his interview that he spent 20 minutes rewording it to be able to post. Now, was that a length thing, or was that like YouTube being bad thing? Tim says, drink some of your static water. I'll have to rewatch later. Time to cook dinner. Yes, I have static water today and not the bubbly. Yeah, GameStop go burr. Yeah, people are saying trolling has hit the mainstream. That's exactly what has happened. And I am finding more and more and more that I am seeing people comment or seeing news stories, and I can't tell anymore if they're satire enough because the world has become that ridiculous that I'm having to go and do a search, and the fact that meme of that black guy was in the FBI criminal complaint, I had to search high and low to find out if that was true. Because I was like, there is no way. But that is what happened. Jesse Meek says 500 million to house them in parking garage. I'm losing my effing mind here. Yep, that was the Capitol. Yeah, the National Guard at the Capitol. And they're talking about now vetting all new military recruits to make sure that they're not Trump supporters or have ties to militias or the NRA or the Gadsden flag or any of that. Most of the military members that I know are conservative. How are they going to build an army of only non-conservative people? I don't see that going well for them. Jordan S. says, I ordered a Taurus G2C online, and after some confusion on when the waiting period ended, I finally got it today, along with 50 bullets for $50. Yeah, man, that's pretty rough. I actually am taking a shooting training class on Sunday, and I was all excited about it. And then I realized, oh, crap. Yeah, that means that I'm going to be using ammo. And I'm like, oh, man, well, I should probably train with what I'm actually going to be carrying, which is a 9mm. But that stuff's $1 a round right now. I'm going to be going through a couple $100. Oh, it's so sad. But I don't really want to train with the 22 because I don't know really how generalized that is. Anyways. Jesse Meek says, are you sure that picture isn't there? I'm pretty sure I saw it in AOC's office. Joe Marisol says, test that did go through. Robin says, the rioters almost murdered me in my house. I live in Tennessee. Yeah, they get around, apparently. Joe Marisol says, got out of Facebook jail today in case I go back soon. Well, my goodness. Thank you, Joe. That is very, very generous. And I hope that you don't go back to Facebook jail, but it is very, very easy to land up there. I'm surprised I haven't yet. Quite frankly. Q says, I hear the people who were at Trump's speech all set world record mile run times. Right, because we heard from people that were there that there were already people over the barricades when the people that were at the speech came in. So, Trashman says, did you see Nicole Wallace suggested droning anti-lockdown protesters and they call us violent? I did not see that. I will run a search for that right now. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'll have to take a look at that later. I know that John Brennan is making the rounds on all the news circuits, and he's been talking about how we need to use what we learned in Iraq and Afghanistan to stop domestic terrorism here. I mean, and what they were doing in Iraq and Afghanistan was like counterintelligence, spying, droning people. So what are they going to start, drone bombing American citizens here? Are they going to start, targeting out like the journalists and the weddings and the Doctors Without Borders? Because I mean, that's what was going on over there. And that is so scary that they're talking about using counterterrorism intelligence that our government uses against foreign countries on American citizens within our own borders. And yet they don't think that we live in a dystopia. They don't think that there's anything wrong with this. They think that they're somehow like helping. It's like it's like that meme of Wiggum from Simpsons on the bus, and he's like got his finger up his nose, and he's like, "I'm in danger," or "I'm helping," or whatever you want to put on that meme. It's exactly what's going on. Robert Chappelle says, "I'm getting the impression that narcissistic sociopaths run for elected office." You are correct, sir. And, and it's so funny because, just a couple days before this AOC story came out, I was on the stream and I was like, yeah, I think she really believes what she's talking about. There is some mental instability there. And then it came out right after that it was a whole big lie and she's defending it. And I don't know if you guys saw the fact check. The fact check. Let me pull this up for you. Here's the fact check from Snopes. So the claim is that AOC exaggerated. I don't know why that just opened its own thing. The claim is that AOC exaggerated the danger she was in during the January 6th Capitol riot in that she wasn't even in the Capitol building when the riot occurred. They say, mostly false. What's true? AOC wasn't in the main Capitol building where the House and Senate chambers are located. So then that means that this claim is true. And they say the fact that she wasn't in the building is true. But they're calling it false because they're saying that she never claimed to be in the main Capitol building. She certainly implied it. She talked about being there and hiding from the rioters in her office. She talks about how this is pointing out that she wasn't there is a way to try to manipulate people that don't understand the Capitol complex. The fact that she claimed to be at the Capitol is manipulating the fact that people don't understand the Capitol complex. She is accusing Jack Posobiec and the journalists and the people on the right wing of doing the exact same thing that she is doing. She never would have admitted to not being in that building if someone hadn't pulled up a map and posted it. My God. Anyways. Robin says, I read it in the Washington Times that she's exploring a primary run against Schumer for the Senate. Well, now that would be interesting because on the one hand, that could cause the Democrat Party to absolutely implode. But on the other hand, I would be afraid that she might somehow win. That would be terrifying. Dragon's Talon says pillow lives matter. Steve Pat says, with how psychotic AOC is it any wonder why Lauren Boebert wants to stay armed in Congress? See, and that was another thing. AOC claimed that even Congress people aren't allowed to carry in D.C. There's plenty of people that can carry in D.C., and Congress people are fully allowed to carry on the Capitol, within the Capitol complex. In fact, there was a petition that got sent around by the Democratic legislators to stop Lauren Boebert from carrying in the Capitol complex. If she wasn't allowed to do it, there wouldn't have been a petition to try to get her to stop. I just can't. I can't. Probably one of the biggest things that I hate in the world are people who are dishonest. So, I mean, it's natural that I don't like government or politicians. But my God, AOC is in a totally different level. She is a league of her own. Ginger Monkey Bear says that David Hogg doesn't know anything about betting a woman. Well, there's lots of things that he doesn't know about. Clearly. And then Robin says, crap, we're not at the crazy stuff yet. Well, let's get into this. So first we had this article that came out in the New York Times a few days ago. And it was called How the Biden Administration Can Help Solve Our Reality Crisis. These steps, experts say, could prod more people to abandon the scourge of hoaxes and lies. And one of the most important things in this article is that this guy talked about how he talked to a whole bunch of experts, and the expert consensus of how this should be handled is there should be a cross-agency task force to battle misinformation so they can have all agencies can come together and have a streamlined approach to stomping out misinformation whenever it comes up. And it talked about how important it is for the Biden administration to understand the problem of misinformation and how the suggestion is that the Biden administration sets up a truth commission, much like the 9/11 Commission, to investigate the planning and execution of the Capitol siege on January 6th. So first, we had people talking about truth and reconciliation committees. We had people talking about ousting any pro-Trump members from Congress. That is something that is still going on. They're talking about getting rid of Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though she was elected by her constituents. And now they're talking about a truth commission for the January 6th riots. And who is going to head this new cross-agency task force and this new truth commission? How about a reality czar? Because that'll work, and the people will trust that, despite the fact that trust in the media is already at a record low, and people don't trust the government and think that we're headed towards a civil war. Well, let's appoint a reality czar, because that will totally change their mind on all of those things. Several experts I spoke to, he says, recommended that the Biden administration put together a cross-agency task force to tackle disinformation and domestic extremism, which would be led by something like a reality czar. And he says, it sounds a little dystopian, I'll grant, because it is dystopian. It's right out of 1984 with the Ministry of Truth and how they were always constantly rewriting history because we were always at war with Oceania and we were always at war with Eurasia. So now we're going to have a Ministry of Truth headed by a reality czar. And then this piece came out in Time magazine yesterday. And I haven't even read this yet. I have heard about it, and I have seen and heard people discussing snippets of it. This article literally talks about a conspiracy of a group of people creating a cabal to fortify, quote unquote, the election and the election results. The words conspiracy and cabal are actually used. And just so we can really push this point home, I'm going to pull up the definitions of cabal and conspiracy. We have them ready when we get to that part of the article. Because, I mean, this is... oh, goodness, goodness, goodness. So, here's this article. The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. Now, just as a forewarning here, a lot of the stuff that is mentioned in this article is very similar to claims that Donald Trump made and that people are getting censored for and kicked off of YouTube and Facebook and other platforms for and are getting canceled for. So, YouTube overlords, please keep in mind, I am reading the exact words of an article here. It'll be up on screen so we can follow along together. And this is straight out of Time magazine. So the article starts out. A weird thing happened right after November 3rd election. Nothing. The nation was braced for chaos. Liberal groups had vowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias were girding for battle. In a poll before Election Day, 75% of Americans voiced concern about violence. Instead, an eerie quiet descended. As President Trump refused to concede, the response was not mass action, but crickets. When media organizations called the race for Joe Biden on November 7th, jubilation broke out instead as people thronged cities across the U.S. to celebrate the democratic process that resulted in Trump's ouster. And actually, here's a picture of some of the reactions of all of the people that went out and took to their streets and took off their masks and drank champagnes and shared drinks with each other and shared glasses with each other in the middle of a pandemic where, just a few weeks prior, government officials and liberals and leftists everywhere were saying, well, Trump can't have rallies because that'll spread COVID. But when you're getting together with your leftist buddies to celebrate Biden being named the winner of the election, that's okay because Biden will cure COVID. And I mean, he basically has, because as soon as he was announced as the winner, or certified, we'll say, and then inaugurated, well, Massachusetts started letting up their lockdowns. Lori Lightfoot over in Chicago started letting down some of her lockdowns. New York, Bloomberg's people started talking about the importance of lifting lockdowns. Cuomo decided to lift some lockdowns. Newsom in California was like, gee, maybe we should lift some of these lockdowns. Magically, as Biden became president. And, right before that, too, the worst numbers that we've seen in the country, and it's going to be a long, dark winter, and COVID is going to kill us all. Well, now suddenly, all of a sudden, COVID cases are down like 14 or 15% in some places, 20% in other places. Magically. I mean, Joe Biden just has to exist. He just has to breathe his magic Joe Biden breath all over the land, and COVID is dead, basically. Never mind that there's all these news reports of deaths coming out connected to the vaccines and how like you still have to wear your mask and social distance anyways. And you can, people saying, well, oh, you have to get the vaccine so that you can't catch it and spread it. But once you get the vaccine, you can still catch it and spread it. Talking about double, triple masking. But Joe Biden and his magical Joe Biden breath just went out across the land. He hugged everyone in those big blue arms that they talked about on CNN, represented by the lights around the Washington Monument. And he cured COVID. So this doesn't even matter. A second odd thing happened amid Trump's attempts to reverse the result, says the writer. Corporate America turned on him. Hundreds of major business leaders, many of whom had backed Trump's candidacy and supported his policies, called on him to concede. To the president, something felt amiss. It was all very, very strange, Trump said on December 2nd. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were still being counted. And then Time says, Trump was right. Right there. All this time that we were told it was conspiracy and misinformation and lies and all the deplatforming that happened around it, blaming violence on it. And then Time just says, oh, Trump was right. Well, why was he right? Because there was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Now here is where I'm going to pull up the definition for you guys of conspiracy. Conspiracy, the act of conspiring together, an agreement among conspirators, a group of conspirators. Now, synonyms of this include cabal, crew, gang, mafia, mob, ring, and syndicate. Usually, conspiracy has really negative connotations. Usually, it's used in connected to crimes or overthrowing governments. That's popular right now, or things like that. So keep in mind, there was this conspiracy going on, unfolding by Time Magazine's own words. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes to coordinate the resistance from CEOs and stop protests. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Congress and the AFL-CIO, published on Election Day. So this is a big union, I believe. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests. But I thought that they were just peaceful protests and weren't destructive, but okay. In which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. So the conspiracy was to stop the assault on democracy by Trump, which is interesting because later in the article, from what I've seen of it discussed, they say, well, it wasn't a conspiracy to stop Trump, but it was a conspiracy to oppose his assault on democracy. So they can't even keep their story straight. The handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election. First of all, anyone who's engaging in protecting the election is not going to be non-partisan, cross-partisan. That's not how things work these days. But anyways, an extraordinary shadow effort, again, shadow effort, conspiracy, dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free and fair, credible and uncorrupted, while also, remember, stopping Trump's assault on democracy. So it's not about Trump, they say, but it's to keep things free and fair while opposing Trump. Okay. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives. See, this word too, operatives. I mean, that's normally what you hear in like spy movies, intelligence, counterintelligence, things like that. This conspiracy shadow effort with operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. So we had to protect them from Donald Trump and his, remember, quote unquote, assault on democracy, not from this conspiracy of shadow efforts and operatives. I mean, if you read between the lines, like, this is so loaded. This screams propaganda. But it gets better. Though much of this activity took place on the left. So they claim that it's cross-partisan, and later in the article, they'll even claim nonpartisan, had nothing to do with Trump except for stopping his assault on democracy. But much of this activity took place on the left. But they didn't want to change the results or to impact the results. They just wanted it to be free and fair from the left's perspective. It was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines, even though much of this activity took place on the left. They contradict themselves even in the same sentence, with crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. Okay. The scenario the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. Okay? It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all, a failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. Well, so remember, one of the things that we talked about after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the possibility that if a result couldn't be determined, it would then be determined by the House and could go to the Supreme Court. And now remember, the left was concerned that the Supreme Court would lean conservative with the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett. Remember that? And so they talked about, if they were to gain power, the importance of packing the court with Democrats and making Washington, D.C. a state, which they are trying to do, and doing all of these other things to ensure a long-term Democrat left majority. All of those things that they threatened to do, they have already started introducing and trying to do. So, I mean, there was already things in place. There was a system in place as to what would happen if for some reason election results could not be determined. But for them, they say, well, no, that there wasn't a system in place. And so it would have been calamitous and a failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. That's not, there was a system in place for that. They just didn't like the system because it didn't lead in their favor. Their work touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and helped secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. And the thing is, a lot of these laws that they changed last minute, they did without state congressional approval, which is illegal. And that is what some of the lawsuits were about, and they all got thrown out. And people are saying, well, the fact that they got thrown out means that there was, no merit to them. But really what it means is that the courts didn't want to have to get involved in election results or anything that would change election results. And there are articles of people talking about that and saying how the courts don't have a business in doing anything with election results. Whether or not you believe that's true or within their purview is something different entirely. The courts didn't want to get involved. And, I would think that if these people were really so interested and wanting to ensure so much that we had a free and fair, credible, and uncorrupted election, as they say right here, then you would think that they would be open to actually investigating some of these claims and making sure that none of these claims were legitimate and not working to change the laws outside of these state constitutions, which they did. Things like they had like voting in the park in New York City. That goes against New York state laws and the New York Constitution. But they did it anyways. And I mean, they said, oh, a pandemic, it's special circumstances and blah, 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 blah. I mean, they changed the rules last minute. They skirted around state laws to change the rules. But remember, it was part of a free and fair and credible, uncorrupted election, thanks to this conspiracy of shadow operatives being talked about in Time magazine. They fended off voter suppression lawsuits, recruited armies of poll workers, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time. Though voting by mail is not anything new, it actually started in 2019, but regardless, they successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and used data-driven strategies to fight viral smears. So they admit to controlling the narrative and the flow of information. They executed national public awareness campaigns, propaganda, that helped Americans understand how the vote count would unfold over days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more traction. I mean, to be fair, when we all went to bed on November 3rd, he was ahead by a huge margin. And I remember taking screenshots and watching, especially Rhode Island and Virginia and North Carolina at the time were all red, and Trump was ahead by 20% in some of these states, and they had already called them for Joe Biden. That's pretty fishy. But anyways, excuse me. After Election Day, they monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the result. The untold story of the election is the thousands of people of both parties, but remember, they said it was mostly on the left, who accomplished the triumph of American democracy at its very foundation. Well, how can you be sure that it was the triumph of American democracy when it sounds like this conspiracy of a shadow effort with operatives, remember these are their own words, worked to make sure that they liked the result of the election and they felt that the election was free and fair and credible. So if it's their opinion and they're the ones that are doing this and they're this small group of operatives, I mean, how do we know that that's a triumph of American democracy? It sounds like it's more their triumph, but okay. And this is according to Norm Eisen, a prominent lawyer and former Obama administration official who recruited Republicans and Democrats to the board of the Voter Protection Program. So, I mean, this is a former Obama official saying oh, okay, we did good. We protected democracy and we stopped Donald Trump from claiming that he won. Okay. For Trump and his allies were running their own campaign to spoil the election. The president spent months insisting that mail ballots were a Democratic plot and the election would be rigged. Regardless of your thoughts on mail-in voting, there were certainly some issues with it and just, the sheer volume of votes that came in and making sure that all of that was counted fairly and in a timely manner. And I mean, we saw videos of places where the poll watchers weren't let in and they were putting cardboard up on the windows and stuff so people couldn't watch, even though legally there's supposed to be people watching. But regardless of any of that, they're saying that he spent months insisting that the election would be rigged. But this whole article is about a, quote, conspiracy shadow effort of operatives working behind the scenes to ensure the results of the election and ensure that it wasn't part of, quote, Trump's assault on democracy. That kind of sounds like rigging. I mean, again, YouTube overlords, this is just what Time Magazine is saying. I'm just reading along with the article, but I don't know. I mean, if it wasn't rigging, why did this have to happen in the shadows? Why is it being called a conspiracy? Why were there these unknown operatives? The article goes on, his henchmen at the state level sought to block their use, while his lawyers brought dozens of spurious suits to make it more difficult to vote, an intensification of the GOP's legacy of suppressive tactics. Meanwhile, Democrats have actually been talking about, the need to have immigrants come over the border and send them to states like, California, and then get them registered to vote. There was that article that talked about which video I brought it up on one of my videos. There was this article where it was all about how places like Virginia are turning blue because more and more immigrants are coming into the cities, and they are turning, quote, the rolling farmlands into suburbs and townhouses, and trying to bring in more immigrants because immigrants are more likely to vote Democrat. It's right in there. It was in my video where I talked about the, actually it was in a VCDL video. But there were two articles. There was one in Time and one in the New York Times that talked about immigrants being the key to getting more Democrat votes. Anyways. So, I mean, they can't say, talk about all these plots when they have their own plot going on. But anyways, before the election, Trump plotted to block a legitimate vote count, and he spent the months following November 3rd trying to steal the election he'd lost with lawsuits and conspiracy theories, kind of like, conspiracy theories similar to what this article is talking about actually happened. Pressure on state and local officials, and finally summoning his army of supporters to the January 6th rally that ended in deadly violence at the Capitol. Well, first of all, the only person that died in the actual riot, at the cause of the riot, was Ashley, oh my goodness, her last name, was it Bobet? Wow, her last name's escaping me, but we all know who it was. It was the woman that was shot by the Capitol Police officer. She passed away. There was a couple of Capitol Police officers that passed away from their injuries after the fact. There was a couple people that committed suicide. I don't think you can really blame the riot on that. And then there was a couple people that died of unrelated medical issues that just happened to happen at the riot. And they're saying like, okay, well, January 6th, deadly violence. How many people died with the BLM protests and riots over the summer? Wasn't there a pawn shop that was burned down and like someone was still inside? There were so many people that were shot, businesses looted, homes destroyed, but they don't call that deadly violence. That was peaceful protests. And I mean, you can't, I remember we watched it on the live stream. Trump's video, he wasn't summoning an army of supporters to riot and take over the Capitol. But again, and talking about his lawsuits, again, like if these people were really so concerned about a fair and credible election, as this article says, then you would think that they would be open to investigating these claims, even if it was just to be like, oh no, these didn't happen. Like if you really want a free and fair and strong, legitimate election, why not actually investigate any of the claims of fraud? If you are so sure that fraud didn't happen, then at the very least, that would be an excellent opportunity to be like, oh, look, Donald Trump is stupid. He said these things happened and they didn't. Here's the proof. But no, instead, they just ignored it and kicked it all out of court, which looks a lot fishier to me personally. But The democracy campaigners watched with alarm. Quote, every week we felt like we were in a struggle to try to pull off this election without the country going through a real dangerous moment of unraveling, says former GOP Representative Zach Wamp, a Trump supporter who helped coordinate a bipartisan election protection council. We can look back and say this thing went pretty well, but it was not at all clear in September and October that that was going to be the case. Here we go. This is the inside story of the conspiracy to save the 2020 election based on access to the group's inner workings, never-before-seen documents, and interviews with dozens of those involved from across the political spectrum. It is the story of an unprecedented, creative, and determined campaign whose success also reveals how close the nation came to disaster. Every attempt to interfere with the proper outcome of the election was defeated, says Ian Basson, co-founder of Protect Democracy, a nonpartisan rule of law advocacy group. But it's massively important for the country to understand that it didn't happen accidentally. The system didn't work magically. Democracy is not self-executing. Remember, it's not about Trump. It's only about his assault on democracy and ensuring the proper outcome. Like the word choice here, oh man. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told, even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies, working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. They were not rigging the election, they were fortifying it. Yes, fortifying it with their cabal. Let's pull up the definition of cabal. Cabal, the contrived schemes of a group of persons secretly united in a plot as to overturn a government. This is the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. The contrived schemes of a group of persons secretly united in a plot as to overturn a government. Cabal. A well-funded cabal of powerful people, says Time magazine, worked to influence perceptions, to change the rules and the laws, to steer the media coverage and control the flow of information. And they don't call this rigging the election. They don't call this propaganda. They call it fortifying the election. Fortifying it, remember, to have the, quote, proper outcome and oppose Trump's assault. And there are people that are going to read this and think that it is amazing and wonderful, and they're going to read this in such a positive light. This is some scary, freaky stuff. And remember, one of the first lines in the article goes on the little paragraph about all of Trump's accusations, and then it says, in a way, Trump was right, because there is this secret conspiracy of this cabal of well-funded people, quote-unquote, fortifying the election by determining the media narrative, changing the rules and laws, and influencing perceptions. This is straight out of 1984. This is straight out of the Color Wars. This is straight out of the CIA playbook. I mean, we've seen this before in declassified documents, and they're saying, but this was what we needed to do to ensure a fair and democratic election. Fair by whose standards, I wonder? This secret cabal of people, apparently. And then it talks about, the architect of the quote-unquote architect of this, and how he's the president of the AFL-CIO, the nation's largest union federation. Now, the thing about unions is I've known some people that worked in unions and, unionized trades, and all of those people, as soon as they entered into the union, were told I'm not going to do it in the Boston accent. They were told that unions vote for labor and labor votes blue, is what they were told. They were told that if you were going to be a part of the union, you were going to be required to vote Democrat. Maybe that was just a New England thing, but that's what they were told. And certainly it's the politicians on the left that are always talking about the importance of unionizing. I don't even think that your job should require you to vote a certain way, but they were told if you are joining the union, you have to sign this contract and you're voting blue. Vote blue no matter who. And the guy that orchestrated all of this was the president of the nation's largest union federation. Now, of course, this guy, you know, they're not going to come right out and say it, but of course, if he's a union guy, he's going to vote blue because the blue is the ones that are in favor of unionizing. Anyways, he marshaled the latest tactics and data to help its favored candidates win elections. Well, there we go. He was already in the business of trying to help his candidates and not a nonpartisan effort. It talks about a group of liberal strategists he brought together in the early 2000s led to the creation of the Analyst Institute, a secretive firm that applies scientific methods to political campaigns. He was also involved in the founding of Catalyst, the flagship progressive data company. So they talked about earlier in this article that this was mostly on the left, but it was a nonpartisan cabal conspiracy to ensure a democratic election. But even the president and the president of this big union federation, who was the architect of this whole thing, supposedly had a company. He brought together a group of liberal strategists and created a progressive data company, but it was a nonpartisan effort. And he talks about how the endless chatter in Washington about political strategy has little to do with how change really gets made. And this guy says that my basic take on politics is that it's all pretty obvious if you don't overthink it or swallow the prevailing frameworks whole. Man. And then, it goes on and it talks about Trump getting elected in 2016 and all of that. And it goes on. It talks about the alliance he drafted a 3-page confidential memo titled Threats to the 2020 Election. And in the memo, it says Trump has made it clear that this will not be a fair election and that he will reject anything but his own reelection as fake and rigged. And there was concern that he would use the right-wing information system to establish his narrative and incite his supporters to protest. And so they laid out 4 categories of challenges: attacks on voters, attacks on election administration, attacks on Trump's political opponents, and, quote, efforts to reverse the results of the election. So they were concerned that he would not accept the election unless he won, and that he would say that it was faked and rigged. So they created this conspiracy, this well-funded cabal of shadow operatives to, remember, control the flow of information, control the information, change the rules and laws, and control the narrative. I mean, you don't even need to read between the lines on this one. It flat out admits all of these things. I mean, and I can't believe that this was printed. I mean, they printed the quiet part out loud, and then the whole rest of the article just talks about how it was all put together through Zoom meetings and all the people that joined, and how it stretched to Congress and Silicon Valley and the nation's state houses, how they had to overhaul America's bulky election infrastructure, how they appealed to Congress to steer COVID relief money to election administration, the CARES Act, private philanthropy stepped in, and the Chan Zuckerberg initiative chipped in $300 million. So Zuckerberg was helping with this initiative, this shadow cabal to ensure election results. I mean, what this really should be is like a damning piece of evidence. And instead, it's like, let's celebrate this secret story. I just can't believe that this was printed. I mean, and it goes on and on and on. And it's like a list of confessions, except it's being celebrated as like saving democracy. I mean, look at it, just keeps going forever and ever and ever. This is insane. This is straight out of 1984. And the left sees no problem with it because their guy won. I just like, when I heard about this article, I absolutely couldn't believe it. And I would love to go through it even more with you guys, but it's almost 8:30. So I have to jump in and grab the rest of the super chats. But I will, you know what? I will post this in the chat. You guys can do a search for it, but I will post it in the chat so you guys can read the rest of it. It's just terrifying. Absolutely terrifying to me. Like, it's so creepy. And I don't know if it's even worse that they like announced it and are celebrating it. Oh. Jesse Meek says, what nuts, D's nuts. Sorry, everyone. This is the kind of crap that goes through my head always. Trashman says, had the edit and try again message when he tried to send a super chat. The only part that was from the first draft was your state bird. The intro you read was 5 tries to get the okay. Wow. I wonder what was setting it off. Superboss Giovanni says, I wouldn't be surprised if China Joe is limiting our military just so we aren't a major threat to China militarily anymore. You want to know something really creepy? I heard this on Tim Pool yesterday on his show. They were talking about these efforts, right, to root conservatives out of the military and to do social media background checks and all of these things on new recruits. And also at the same time, all these reports that are coming out about like declining fertility and testosterone and stuff in the West. Meanwhile, China is now starting new campaigns to, quote, masculinize their men. I mean, that's creepy. I mean, talk about, this article said like a paranoid fever dream. That sounds like something out of a paranoid fever dream, but that's a legitimate thing. Like, Stephen Hatton says the boomers were right when they said we were leaving gold on the ground while they were brass grabbing. Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to have a lot more trouble getting brass now. Chris Britt says, hey, just got in salt when it popped up. I'm going to restart. And you're right. This has been a total beginning of a dystopian nightmare. It has. I mean, this article is flat out admitting that there is like this shadow group of people that are like controlling everything and controlling the narrative and changing the flow of information and changing the rules. And it's like, yeah, this is great. And not, this is terrifying. Q says, if you rub the hairs on Biden's leg, you won't get COVID. Hal Edwards says, John Brennan proves the law against the CIA operating inside the country is a great idea. Yes. Robert Chappelle says, message from the Ministry of Truth. Joe Biden, in fact, sniffed Cove its hair and blew in its ear. This was your first warning. And Robin Patty says, to drink. I will drink, Robin. All right. And let's see. We got Jesse Sowell. Thank you for the super sticker. And Bruce the Box Brooks says Twitter's justification for flagging Tim Pool's tweet of the Time article is that it promotes violence and misinformation. Really? It promotes violence and misinformation? So I had heard that he talked about this and was censored, but I did not I didn't know in what way that he was censored, so he tweeted about it, and the tweet was taken down for misinformation. Really? I'm going to look at that right now. That's nuts. Wow. Wow. Yep. Okay. So I don't think this, he said, I don't think this even matters at this point. Time magazine just came out and said that a cabal of elites rigged the election. I'm sorry. They said they didn't rig the election. They, quote, fortified it by changing the rules and laws as well as manipulating the flow of information. And it is being flagged. This claim of election fraud is disputed, and this tweet can't be replied to, retweeted, or liked due to a risk of violence. Wow. Wow. That is nuts. So he tweeted about the article, and the article is being disputed as election fraud. Wow. That is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Jesse Meek says that whole article should be Exhibit 1, right? I mean, it sounds more like it's something that would be, in a lawsuit than an article published in Time magazine and celebrated. You know what? And actually, you know what? You said that. I'm going to hit it on the archive link. All right. It was already archived an hour ago, but I'm going to post the archive link in there. So the archive, this is archive.today, and it basically freezes a copy of the link in time in case they go back and try to change it later. So that is also in the chat, just because, I don't know, man. If Twitter is flagging it as election fraud disinformation, that could lead to violence, but it's a Time magazine article. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Captain Max says, one cannot point out that the Emperor is naked. And Brad the Magnificent, thank you for the donation. Rod L. Miller says, so is Time magazine going to get a timeout? I don't know. I don't know. That's why I just archived it, just in case. So I don't know. I might take a snippet of that section of the live stream and put it up as a dedicated video. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be something that gets my channel taken down or if it gets flagged. But remember, YouTube overlords. I read the article and used their own words. That's it. Oh boy. So that is 2021 is a meme and is a dystopia, brought to you by the FBI Criminal Complaint, by AOC, by Time Magazine, and David Hogg. There we have it, folks. So it is 8:34, so I have to dip out. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I see people are saying have a backup channel. I am on other platforms. They are listed down at the bottom of the description. I know that Jared tried to have a backup channel, and he has one. That one is getting flagged more than his regular channel, which is interesting. And, oh, thank you, Dragon. Dragon's Talent says, help with your gun course ammo fund. Have fun shooting. Thank you. Bonus, the guy I picked, if I like his class, he has a YouTube channel, so he might be open to me filming some lessons in the future. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hitting the like button. Of course, thank you for all of these super chats and everyone hanging out in the chat. You guys are awesome, and we have a really great community here. I saw a couple, at least one person posted the link to the MeWe group. We're working on a Discord and some other things coming up, and that is it. So we'll have a couple videos coming out this weekend, and then I will see you guys on the next live stream Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Everyone have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, stay out of the camps. Good night, everyone.